Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Great to see you all. It looks as though I just need to enable your microphones. Give me 1 second. Okay.
Good afternoon, Davis.
Good afternoon. It's very nice to see you, Ivan. How's Germany today?
Fine. So I would say sometimes right now.
I think there may be a bad signal. It sounds as though you're akin to a robot at the moment, so we'll maybe come back to that. Robin, good to see you as well. How are you?
Hello, Aaron. How are you doing? Good to see you.
I'm fine. I'm fine, thanks. Really nice to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I was hoping to get back home to my office in time for today's call. So just made it, just in time.
Fantastic. Great to see you. And Howard, thanks for joining. How are things with you?
Oh, well, thanks you, Aaron. How are you doing today?
I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad. It's very cold where I am. It's -7, I think. And we had a little bit of snow overnight. So it's a question of keeping wrapped up and warm as much as possible, I guess, for everyone else, right?
Absolutely.
So fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Rav, good to see you as well. Thanks for making the time.
Hi, Aaron. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Keeping warm, I guess. Same as everyone in the UK. I think we have a couple of folks maybe from outside. I see Tom, I see Patrick. Thank you for joining, gentlemen. Real pleasure.
Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you for inviting us.
It's a real pleasure. I just want to check, can everybody see the PowerPoint slides on the screen?
No.
Oh, you can't?
No.
Let me just...
You have to forgive me. I need
Oh,
to
neither
go
can I, sadly.
Because I'm trying to fix Teams, which has crashed on me. So I'm using the
Oh,
web.
really?
It's working very well for me.
It is working well. Okay.
I'm getting an error
really.
that says can't display content, Aaron.
Yeah, I was on a call earlier and they had the same problem. I'm just going to log in again. I think it's easier.
I
Yeah,
can see it. Not that helps anyone else, but yeah.
Well, I'm glad you can see it. That's definitely a plus. Let's maybe have people come back in. If that doesn't work, I will try to reshare the content, and then we can obviously just go straight ahead and jump into the details. So let's see. How's that, Ralph? Is that working better now?
It's working pretty fine.
It's working fine. Okay, that's good. How about you, Howard? No? It's a thumbs down.
No, I still can't see it. Maybe I need to log off completely rather than just out of the meeting. Sorry, I'll disappear and I'll come back. Please start without me.
No worries. No worries. Yeah, it's a strange thing, and I can't profess to be a Teams expert by any means, but normally if we hit the share button, it should just appear. But let me just try to refresh on my side, and then I propose we probably just jump into the presentation. So let me try that again. Okay. That should be loading for everybody. Is that looking okay?
No, I can't see it, but just crack on. It doesn't worry me.
We'll crack on, and I'll make sure the recording is available for you later. So if you want to recap on that, that'll be easy to do. So thanks everyone for joining today. I'm just going to let a couple more folks into the room. And here we go. The miracles of technology, right? It's fantastic when it works and challenging when it doesn't, but I think we're getting there. Thank you everybody for joining today's webinar. It's great to see you all. For those of you who haven't met me before, my name is Aaron Davies. I'm the founder of a company called August Jaeger, which is one of 3 different hats that I wear, but today's discussion is all about that business, which I describe as a career navigation service, for want of a better phrase. So I set the business up halfway through last year, in part to try and counteract what I see as an all-time low in the candidate experience, in particular the way some organizations have been interacting with job seekers throughout the hiring process. It's a pretty well-documented fact that we're in a tough hiring market. There's a paradigm shift going on with AI, but unfortunately, what I've witnessed in the last probably 4 or 5 years, originating strongly from the advent of COVID, was people having pretty challenging experiences through the process. I'm thinking of things like ghosting, lack of responses, a kind of fatigue that's setting in with the requirement to kind of prepare and personalize every application. So that's one big kind of motivating factor behind it. I think the second reason is because I often see, when talking to people, significant gaps in the way job seekers are positioning themselves. And I'm a great believer in the power of storytelling. And in my experience, the vast majority of candidates out there aren't necessarily fully maximizing their possibilities in this area. So the kind of message, I guess, behind today's webinar is, what if the key to unlocking your next big career move wasn't on your resume, but hidden within you in terms of your strengths, your blind spots, and natural abilities? So in this webinar, we'll be exploring how to unlock insights about yourself as an individual through tools like MBTI, which we'll be talking about more, and how they can help you target the right roles, optimize your performance, and uncover what's been holding you back so far. So I'm going to go in and start with a couple of recent statistics, if I may. So according to a recent global study, as you can see here, 85% of professionals are not fully aligned to roles that suit their strengths, and 70% of job seekers underestimate the value of soft skills in landing the right role. So if we think of our own situations at work, there may be scenarios where you perhaps felt like you're underperforming despite working very hard, or that something is perhaps just not clicking in your current role. Now, where we would like to get to in an ideal world is having a crystal clear roadmap of your strengths, your blind spots, your professional preferences. And if that were the case, how much more strategic would your career moves be? So the aim that I'm going to try and get to here is, from today's webinar, to explore how we're going to unlock insights about yourself using the MBTI framework, how it can help you make smarter career decisions and thrive in the workplace. So before we dive right into the details, what I'd like to do is perhaps go around the room, learn a bit more about each other. I'm going to suggest that each attendee provides, shall we say, 20 seconds intro of themselves, focusing on three things: where you're located, one challenge that you're currently facing in your professional life, and finally, what you're hoping to get out of today's session. So, Robin, shall we start with yourself?
Happy to do that, Aaron. Yes, absolutely. I'm Robin. I work as a career strategist and HR strategy advisor, based in London, working with executives in the UK and also globally. I think challenges here, well, it is a really challenging job market, so helping people manage that transition is probably forefront of mind at the moment. So really interested to hear thoughts and input from the team and from Aaron today.
Thank you, Robin. Much appreciated. And you're based in the UK, I think.
I'm in the UK, just outside London, in Winchester.
Fantastic. Nice part of the world. Thank you, Robin. Appreciate that. Tom, can we come to you next? Assuming you've stayed with the laptop. Are you there, Tom? Guessing he may have possibly stepped away. No problem at all. Alejandro, are you there?
Hello. Yes, here I am. Happy
Hi.
New Year, everyone. Sorry, I'm with the camera off. I'm with the camera off because I'm driving, coming back from work, and my signal can drop. So to keep it steady, I prefer to turn the camera on.
No, that's safety first, I think. As long as you can kind of talk safely. So we're just looking really for a quick summary of where you're based, one challenge that you're facing currently, and ideally what you're hoping to get out of today's session from your perspective.
Yeah, well, I'm based in Myers-Briggs in the UK, in Wiltshire, and I've always been a farmer, and I'm transitioning or trying to transition my career into a supply chain career, basically based on sustainability and all the. I've always been into region agriculture. And for today's webinar, I'm aiming to get tips on how to present myself and how to transition into a new market, basically.
Excellent. Excellent.
Different.
Thank you, Alejandro. That's great. So a kind of career transition phase, effectively looking to unlock a few more personal insights, understand how to better convey your personal value proposition, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, thank you for joining. Tom, we're going to come back to you. I think you're in the chair again.
Yeah, apologies. Well, I'll start with one of my challenges because I have a 14-week-old puppy, which is why I couldn't get off mute in time. He's currently terrorising my garden, so that's sorry, didn't get back in time. I could hear you.
No problem.
So yeah, Tom Retty. I'm based in the UK as well, in London, southwest near Richmond area. If anybody knows that. So in terms of kind of my challenges, I recently left a role a couple of months ago. So I'm starting my job hunt again. As I think has already been alluded to, it's quite a challenging market, and I think it's trying to cut through the noise. So whereas one always believes that you fit the bill for the job, it's like, actually, how do you make sure that you're applying for the right things and showing those, as you said, soft skills as well. I think that answers all your questions, doesn't it? So.
Yes, it does. Nicely done. Very succinct. Thanks, Tom. I appreciate that. Patrick, let's come to you next.
So I'm Patrick. I work in the global organization of SAP, managing the relationship between SAP and Capgemini, as well as PricewaterhouseCoopers. I am from MTVI. I'm an ENFG. So, and I've been using it for the last, I don't know, maybe 5-10 years. I used to send my 16 personality profile as well with my CV. So I do not have challenges for today, but I'm always keen to learn about new things. So since I'm curious as a human, I'm here to learn.
Excellent. So you're ahead of the game, I think. I should maybe hand the microphone to you in this case, right? You're already exploring this path quite a lot, utilizing it, and clearly you can see the benefits of it, right? So that's
I even put
that's
it on my LinkedIn profile. So if you go check my LinkedIn profile, you will see that I have my link to my 16 personalities, and I have done this test maybe 4 or 5 times in my life, and I'm always the same results. So it confirmed that I'm still the same human, no change in my character. And I always saw that it brings value. But anyway, I'm gonna learn.
Yeah, and ENFJs are generally, you're known as quite compassionate people, very supportive, very loyal, excellent at integrating with others. So we'll come on to that. But thank you for sharing that. That's excellent. Rav, can we come to you next?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Ravinda Kronal, Rav. I've known Aaron for a few years. That's why he's shortened my name. I'm a strategic program manager or hands-on project manager, and I do portfolio management. I am industry agnostic. I work outside IR35. I work mainly with clients that are either broadcast media or corporate, like BP. I've done startups. I specialize in M&A integration work as well. I do coaching and mentoring, especially for women in tech. And I came on here for a couple of reasons: A, to support Aaron, and B, to see what top tips you're showing, even though I can't see your presentation.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Sorry that you can't see it. I'll make
Don't
sure
worry,
this is all shared
it's
with you
fine.
afterwards.
I'm teasing.
We'll try and talk through it as best we can, then we'll follow with some illustrations. But it's great to have you on, Rav. Thank you so much for taking the time. Pinky, thank you for joining. I know we're due to have a catch up tomorrow, but it's great to see you in here as well. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, looking forward to talking to you tomorrow, Aaron. My name is Pinky Gupta. I am based in London as well. I've joined kind of this. So this year I'm thinking sort of to pivot myself a little bit and look for something different. And I've not really been out in the market sort of much because I've been quite changing sort of role in the current company. So I work as a strategy and operations in professional services. So yeah, I'm sort of hoping to pick up something new, learn how to sort of really be out in the market, and when it's not such a good time to be in the market, but explore. So thank you.
That was a pleasure. And I think you've come to the right place, because it really is about trying to differentiate, trying to stand out. There's obviously more competition at the moment. There's arguably less jobs, and we're in a very, very kind of disruptive period. So thank you for joining, and I do hope that you derive some value from today's session. I've got 3 more guests to introduce. So Ivan, based in Germany. Ivan, let's bring you in.
Hello there. Firstly, I would apologize for having my camera shut off the most time, but there's some background cooking going on, so I didn't want that to disturb anything. I'm a ENTJ, a natural born leader, so it says, but I didn't use the knowledge to my advantage till now. I just got started. I'm a young, talented guy, I would say. Having the basis of knowing 3 languages, based in Germany, in Dillingen in Bavaria, if somebody knows that. And yeah, I'm just trying always. And yeah, I'm sorry, I'm kind of.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think it's interesting, because you're coming into this from a slightly different angle, maybe from some of the other guests, in that you're at the start of the career, or very early stage. So it's a slightly different mindset that you'll be bringing into your job search and defining where you want to get to. So I think this will be a very useful session for you. So thank you for joining, Ivan. It's great to have you here. Sandra, lovely to see you. Thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about what you're hoping to get out of today's session. Oh, I think the sound isn't coming through. It may just be me. Doesn't seem to be muted, but I think there's a sound issue.
No, we're not hearing them either.
No. Is the correct microphone selected, Sandra? Just wondering whether it may have selected the wrong one.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. There we go.
Super.
Perfect.
Sorry about that, everybody. So I'm Sandra. I work as an executive search professional. I run a small boutique search firm within private equity, well, actually within private markets. So the span of VC growth all the way through to private equity. I'm based in London. And a lot of the conversations I've been having with at the moment is lots of people who are in transition between different careers. And obviously, I'm not a coach. I'm not a career coach. So I guess I'm here to sort of see if I can learn anything that I can pass on, so any tools as a sort of first stage for people, to help people sort of understand and navigate the transition into something different. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. And I suspect this is something that you can use when you're going through assessments and screening, and how you may be positioning potential candidates for leadership roles. So I think there'll be definite value in that. So thank you, Sandra. Great to see you. And then finally, we have Howard, who I know is based in London. Good to see you again, Howard. How are you?
Oh, well, thanks, Aaron. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I'm in London, a little bit further up the river than Tom. I'm in Putney. I am a transformation COO. So come from banking, but I work across fintech, proptech, and biotech at the moment. I also run a startup. And I'm here because I'm always keen to learn new things, and hopefully I can take something from this. My main challenge at the moment is that I need to find another role to add to my portfolio, hopefully one that, unlike my startup, actually pays me. So that would be good. So I'm looking forward to this afternoon. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks for joining, Howard. That's great. I think you should maybe have a chat with Sandra offline. Yeah, maybe she can plug you into a couple of new circles. Let's see.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. But that's absolutely great. So thank you, everyone, for joining. I will press on without further ado. Appreciate you all making the time. So let's dive into the MBTI framework and how it can potentially help you unlock your career potential. So let's take a look at where this all comes from and why it's so widely used today. So what is MBTI? So it's basically stands for the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. It's actually known as one of the world's most popular personality assessment tools, rooted in decades of research into human behavior and decision making. The origins actually come from a psychology perspective. So the foundation for this framework actually comes from the work of Carl Jung. As some of you will know, he was a renowned Swiss psychiatrist who introduced the concept of psychological types in the early 1920s. So we're kind of 100 years on from when this was first developed, if you like. Jung himself believed that people experience the world through 4 primary functions, so sensation, intuition, thinking, and feeling. He also introduced the concept of introversion and extroversion, which describe where people focus their energy effectively. So he was inspired by Carl Jung's work. Catherine Cook Briggs and her daughter Isabel Briggs Myers sought to create a practical tool to help people better understand themselves and others. So during World War II, they recognized the value of matching individuals with roles that aligned with their strengths, particularly as women started to enter the workforce. And by 1944, they had developed the first version of the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, which you see a kind of a more modern representation of here. That is a questionnaire that identifies personality preferences. So there are 4 dimensions of this, and the framework identifies 16 personality types based on 4 key dimensions. So as you can see here, extroversion, which is classified as E, versus introversion, I. Where do you focus your energy? Sensing versus intuition, how you gather information. Thinking versus feeling is how you make decisions. And of course, judging versus perceiving is how you approach the world and structure your life. So in theory, quite simple, but when you dig into the details, it gets more interesting. So as an example, Patrick mentioned an ENFJ profile. That kind of person would be extroverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging. Often known as charismatic leaders who inspire others to achieve a shared vision. So over time, the MBTI framework gained recognition as a practical tool for personal and professional development. Today, interestingly enough, it's used by 88% of Fortune 500 companies for things like leadership development, team building, and career planning. And interestingly enough, more than 2 million people annually take the MBTI assessment, which highlights its relevance in helping individuals make meaningful career and life decisions. So you're probably thinking, why should this matter to me? Just going to bring Tom back in. Okay. So the framework itself isn't just about labeling personality types. It's also about providing insights that can empower you to unlock your potential. So the theory is by understanding where you naturally excel and where you face challenges, you can make better career decisions. You can enhance your workplace performance. You can build more effective relationships. So I realize I'm talking an awful lot. Does anyone have any questions so far based on that information?
So Aaron, I've been sending it with my CV, and I've put it on my LinkedIn as well. Do you think it's a good idea?
I think it's a good idea. I think in the sense of if you were tailoring an application or you're trying to get the attention of a certain individual, it does make sense to extrapolate from your profile. What are the elements that make you a good fit? So they're looking for a charismatic leader, they're looking for someone with empathetic skills, an active listener. I think in the sense of tailoring, customizing certainly does. I think from a wider interest perspective as well, it's not all that common for people to actively put that on top of their resume. So I would personally be an advocate for that. Because it does show that you've got an interest in this space and you're quite keen to look for ways to understand other people and explore your personal development. So long answer to a simple yes, I think, in that case. Great. Any other questions?
Aaron, just an observation, if I can.
Sure.
I'm a big fan of MBTI, and I've used it extensively, both in terms of coaching and also from a career point of view. I think there's a risk that it's worth highlighting, and I don't know if this is something you would touch on later on too, but there's a risk with MBTI that we've become so fixated on the fact that I'm an INTJ or I'm an ENFP, and you put that sort of badge on your head and you go into life thinking, actually, that's how I operate. And I think it's really important to think from a developmental point of view, we can all operate in all of these spheres. The question is, which is our preference and what's most appropriate at a given time? Just to add
Yeah.
that in from a coaching point of view, I'd
Mm.
always, encourage people to think about the spectrum of behaviours that are appropriate. From a work perspective, that becomes even more important, because actually you can then adopt your style to meet the needs of the stakeholder group that you're working in or influencing or trying to manage, or whatever it might be.
Absolutely right. And probably to further that point, if you look at, say, the Gallup Strengths Finder report or similar, where they're talking about your top 5 personal individual strengths, it then goes into things like blind spots or how to amplify them, how to make the most use of them. I think you're quite right to point that out. It doesn't necessarily put you in a very narrow box where you're not able to adapt or change or learn. Far from it. I think it serves a useful purpose in the sense of helping people understand themselves better and where they naturally fit and default to. But you're quite right. There are certain nuances to it that we should bear in mind for sure.
I don't want to argue about that, but it's very important as a manager to understand the profile of the people that you're working with, to be able to understand their organizational behavior, the way they behave. Because even the people that they might adapt themselves by forcing themselves in a way or another, the natural will always come back. And as a manager or as a leader, if you don't understand the people that you are surrounded with, you might make mistakes or you might interpret their behavior like weird, but it's not weird. It's because they are different. And thanks God that we are 7.5 billions on Earth and we don't look like each other, all of us. So we cannot categorize people as per what is done, but it gives you, let's say, bold, let's say, understanding of every humans and how he react. And it's better for you as a leader to adjust yourself to work with your collaborators in this way.
A very interesting point. So I think Howard's raised his hand. So let's bring Howard in on that point.
Thanks very much, Aaron. Just I guess a comment. I mean, whilst I don't disagree with anything that you've just said, I haven't worked at many companies where this is universally accepted or universally used, perhaps is a better word. And so I'm wondering whether or not does it predetermine the way that people view you as much as you view yourself, so that you come in saying that you are whatever classification you are and they're all equally valid, but then people look at you in such a way, they haven't perhaps gone through this process or it's not universally used in the company, and so therefore it potentially limits the way that they view your capabilities. And does that then mean that potentially you can use this to determine how you should react whilst trying to understand your colleagues as best as possible, but understanding that it's not a level playing field?
I'll let Robin take that one because it looked as though you wanted to come in there. Is that right, Robin?
Yeah. Just to comment on that, because I actually agree with that perspective. I think there is a risk, sort of building on the previous comment I made. If you go into a conversation saying, "Hey, I'm a ENTJ," then the risk is that the organisation and the people you're interacting with will only see you in that particular box. So again, to reinforce the perspective on this, there's a variety of different personality preferences that we can all adopt. The question is, which is the strongest and which one can we use most effectively in the working environment? And if I'm looking at it from a coaching perspective, that's what I want to explore. And there are companies that overplay the MBTI because it becomes a kind of mantra. And there are many businesses that use it really effectively as a very powerful development tool. And from a career perspective, because they see all the nuances and the subtleties behind it.
It's very, very interesting. And I think my view, just to kind of provide further fuel for the debate, is to look at various different elements. So maybe it isn't just MBTI, maybe it's Gallup, maybe it's some of the DISC profiles that have been used. Maybe it's, for some people, it's horoscopes or spiritual readings, whatever it might be, and to amalgamate all of those different perspectives and readings and external perceptions, even based on asking people who know you well or have worked with you closely in the past, say, what would you say about this person? How would you give feedback towards them? How would you describe them? So maybe it isn't enough just to have one framework. Maybe we have to look wider and, you know, allow for some crossover of different boundaries, is my thought.
It depends on the industry that you're working in. In consulting, there is a huge amount of personality test or psychology tests that you go through, especially depending on the level of the recruitment. So they can, in a way or another, identify the person that they are recruiting. So, and especially if you are going to work for companies like a McKinsey or a BCG or a Bain or an Alvarez and Marsal to just name few. And even if you want to come to join a companies like an IBM or an Accenture, it might be not an MBTI as a test, but it could be a multitude of tests before recruiting you.
But does that then go back to the potential hiring process differentials between, say, a large corporate and a fintech startup, for example? So maybe they're hiring more on the person's perceived energy and passion and excitement and how much research they've done, cultural fit, you know, chemistry, all the rest of it, versus there's a corporate process to go through. We're going to expect you to take these tests, you know, fill out these forms, attend these panel interviews. I'm just wondering, you know, is that where the fork in the road is? You know, is this more suited for something that's more structured, more corporate, perhaps?
It depends which role are you recruiting for. So you will define a type of personality that you would like to have for this type of manager or this type of leader to be able to drive the team. And sometimes, based on the team members, you would say, okay, since I have like lonely wolves without a common objectives and so on, I need a leader who is capable of taking lonely wolves and making them a wolf pack. Or in a different place, you will say, this is a product team, they need this type of people to develop this product or whatever. So you cannot say that this is the way I would like to recruit. It's every recruitment is different depending on the role, the team, what you would like to, and the organizational itself. There is a lot of underground rules in every organization, and you cannot put anybody on any role just because he has this type of MBTI or another.
Yeah, I think you have to take it as part of the overall information, if you like. You know, you have to kind of factor this in as part of it. It shouldn't necessarily be the compass with which you decide. Tom, let's bring you on that. I think you have raised your hand.
Yeah, it was just sort of on reflection of some of those conversations. Is one of the ways I've seen it work really well. Is I know it's quite divisive sometimes. The Myers-Briggs, people sort of seem to, it's very Marmite, love or hate it. But you know, in organisations, people tend to recruit people like themselves or similar to themselves, and so therefore, actually, we've used it in organisations to make sure we do have a spread of skills and personality types and all of those kind of good attributes, so you get a balanced team that, you know, help kind of keep each other honest.
Yeah, so using it as a tool to say, well, let's just take a check on, you know, do we have 6 of the same people in this team? Are we all ENFPs? You know, do we need to diversify it a little bit? That's an interesting counter argument.
Yeah, exactly. And we've seen that, you know, I've seen that where people are frustrated with certain individuals because, you know, for example, I remember one guy never wore a watch, but he always turned up on time. And this really didn't gel well with one of the other guys who was like super planning, you know, kind of like he worked a different way, but it enabled everyone to understand how different people operated. So you've got this balanced team. Sorry, my classic working from home dog barking.
The dog wants to raise a paw, I think. Yeah. So that's really interesting. Sorry, Tom, were you finished? I think we'll bring Rab in now. Rab's raised a hand.
Yeah, hi. I did Myers-Briggs back in, I think it was 2000, when I did a startup with Fox Kids, which is owned by Disney. It worked really well there. I don't know if it's because of the environment. We did have consultants at the time. I was actually perm at the time, but I think we had a team of 20 people, and it did bring you closer. And it was nice to see people's strengths and weaknesses in their personality, because then when you're working on different projects, you know, you knew you could lean on certain types of personalities rather than you don't want to break your resources, you know. I hate to use that term, but it did help. It really does. And I think we used to all laugh about it, and believe it or not, you know, it's quite a long time ago. I keep in touch with a lot of the people I worked with that are good friends still in the industry. So I think it can benefit you. Don't ask me what I was. I was looking at the list quickly as I can't see your slide and I can't remember, but I've done a couple of ones last year on different products that were AI focused. And I came out as an implementer and something else, and it did fit for the role I do, you know. So I think you can use that in your benefit, especially when you're, you know, at interviews. I found it quite helpful.
I think so, because it's that old phrase about playing to your strengths and avoiding or being aware of your blind spots effectively. So it's quite. I didn't realize there would be so much debate that came from it. I'm delighted that you know, everyone has kind of shared their views. Are there any other questions before we move on, or is everyone kind of okay with that? All right, fantastic. So we've obviously become familiar with the origins of MBTI and the framework, but what are some of the tangible benefits? So first of all, as we've discussed, it helps you to align your strengths to the right roles. Most people find that once they've identified their personality type, a sense of clarity develops, both in terms of self-reflection and arriving at a realization that there might be a more fitting direction to travel towards. So it can be kind of used almost as an internal compass to a certain degree. Secondly, it's about increasing workplace performance and satisfaction. So using the framework to understand your strengths and weaknesses, as well as your predilections, can assist you in defining and creating a more successful strategy in your professional life. And I think finally, we talked a lot about the ability to identify blind spots, and you know, the ability to proactively overcome challenges is a huge competitive advantage. You know, I think of the concept of self-sabotage, for example. If someone's not aware that they're constantly doing that, you know, they're going to make lots of mistakes, but something like this, pointing it out, obviously gives you that aha moment to hopefully learn from that and identify the triggers. So when your indicator type indicates a natural behavioral pattern that up until now has been destructive, or you've constantly hit the same brick walls, this gives you that chance to seize the initiative and change things for the better. So as one brief side note, last month I had a client in Canada who came to me with a similar problem to the one we just described. They were repeatedly getting into conflict with their peers. It seemed as though confessed to me that they had to do things their own way. They were simply unable to listen to others around them, regardless of what they had to say. So by understanding the profile type and framing that against the context of their professional life and the personality traits, they were able to, first of all, recognize that, make subtle but meaningful changes in their approach and the way they behaved at work, and in exchanges with colleagues. So essentially, the upshot was they began to listen, acknowledge other points of view, and step by step, the relationships they had improved markedly. They gradually won back the trust that had been eroded, and all of which came from a relatively simple investment of time and money to better understand themselves and make profitable changes going forward. So those are some of the reasons it should matter. So my goal in this webinar really is to show you all how you can use these insights in a practical way. So we've listed three key focus areas. So number one, make the right kind of career moves. So understanding the type helps you understand not just the roles, but also probably the industries and the work environments where you'll thrive. So we talk a lot about culture and chemistry. There are many professionals that struggle in roles that don't really align with their strengths or natural preferences, which leads inevitably to frustration and underperformance. So getting that strategic edge in selecting roles where you can excel and feel fulfilled is a key benefit here. Some examples of MBTI profiles in career alignment, and some of you may recognize these from having done the test. So the ENFP is also known as the campaigner. They thrive in dynamic and creative, people-focused environments. So things like marketing, communications, entrepreneurial roles. You have the ISTJ, the inspector, and they prefer more structured, process-driven roles like project management or accounting, IT operations. And then you have the INFJ, the advocate, who excel in purpose-driven roles. So things that require insight and leadership. So coaching, counseling, strategy development. And of course, the entrepreneur, which is categorized as ESTP, they get energized by fast-paced, results-driven roles. So sales, negotiations, event management roles. So I'm going to just throw a poll in here, and maybe we can get a show of virtual hands. So if I mention 3 challenges, and you can tell me perhaps which resonates most with you. So the first one is feeling misaligned with your current role. And if you're not in a role right now, maybe consider the previous role. Second one is you're struggling to identify your ideal career path. And the third one would be you're unsure how to translate your strengths into career success. So if we said the first, show of hands for the first one, are you feeling misaligned with the role you have or the previous role? Could we get a show of virtual hands for that? Don't think we have any there. Okay. And then if those of you who are kind of struggling to identify the ideal career path, so this is more of a directional question. Are there any people in that category? Yeah, so Pinky. Okay, so just one. Howard's raised the hand there. Okay. And that which I presume leaves the last one, which is kind of being unsure exactly how to translate your strengths into career success. So that encounters things like storytelling and narrative and encapsulation. There's Alejandra. Okay, looking to go from farming into ag tech. Okay, fantastic. And an element for Pinky as well. And Tom, all right. Excellent. That's really interesting. So effectively, why does it matter? In summary, leveraging your natural strengths boosts productivity, boosts confidence, it breeds satisfaction, and also thinking about tailoring workflows to your type does ensure that you stay effective without burning out. We talk about night owls and early birds, so it's also looking into the theory of your personality type and understanding where you thrive best. So judging types, signified by a J, they thrive in very structured workflows, so they react well to deadlines and plans, for example. So if you're featuring a J in your profile, it's a good idea to use tools like task lists or end of day wins, project timelines. All of those can help you measure progress. If you're more of a perceiving type, a P, you excel by having flexibility and spontaneity. So you don't work so well in a very rigid environment. So your best advice is probably to build adaptable schedules with room for creative problem solving and iteration. And of course, introverts, as we know, they need time generally for deep work to recharge. They need focus time. So your advice there would be to block quiet periods in the day for solo tasks, prepare for collaborative meetings in advance, to give yourself time. And naturally, extroverts are people that gain energy through team interactions and social settings and brainstorming. So those guys should effectively be scheduling collaborative time to generate ideas and balance that with structured breaks for execution. So my kind of bonus tip, I guess, would be to reflect on one specific aspect of your current role that plays to your strength and ask yourself, how can I expand on this to maximize my impact? I suppose it's going a little bit off topic, but going back to something like Gallup and the Strengths Finder report they have, you complete a large kind of long questionnaire that gives you your top 5 strengths. But what's interesting about that is if you learn, and they generally are very accurate, if you learn about your top 5 strengths, it's kind of remarkable how you get this clarity to think, okay, these are the best ways I can utilize or maximize those skills. So it's all about that kind of personal journey, exploring your unique value prop. So I don't know if we have much time because I've talked so much, but would anyone like to perhaps volunteer one strength that they rely on to perform well at work and maybe how it helps you succeed? Is there anyone that would like to maybe, venture an idea there?
I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
I'm quite an extroverted and collaborative person, and that is a huge bonus at work, particularly in leadership roles, because it always means that I have something to say and I'm happy to bring people into conversations. So rather than, and I feel for my introverted colleagues and friends, people will go away from a meeting, I hope, knowing that I have had an input and therefore I have something to say. And so my opinions potentially may carry more weight than an introvert's because I'm louder rather than being better. And I completely acknowledge that, and that's a weakness and a blind spot. But it does mean that then I can get my point across quite well, because as we've just seen, I'm very happy to talk.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, and you're not feeling any inhibition to say, hey, I've got an idea I'd like to bring to the table here. So if you don't mind me saying, Howard, there is one great example I could maybe share with the group, which was, I think you were in a role at Zoopla. Now, those of us who are in the UK are probably familiar with Zoopla as being one of the first, probably the first company to introduce the concept of being able to look at house values. And there have been a couple of commercials out there that have, played a little bit, to a jokey effect on saying, I wonder how much the neighbour's house is worth and all this kind of stuff. So I think, Howard, that would probably be a good example of where you probably did contribute, that idea around the board table. And there's a great example of being an extrovert, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just as a bit of background, there was a brainstorming session within Zoopla as how we were going to, well, we at the time, I'm not there anymore, how we were going to beat Rightmove. And the idea was, how do you start a dining room conversation? And the idea that I had behind that was, well, you need to try and understand what people's houses are worth. And if you understand what people's houses are worth and you're the go-to place, then people are more likely to use your site than the other sites in order to find that out. Now, look, it hasn't really worked in terms of the actual North Star. Rightmove still own that market as the leader, but it certainly led Zoopla's marketing campaign for up until Christmas, basically. Where they just
it's a great example, isn't it, to maximize that strength you've got. I think conversely, just to finish the point on blind spots, every personality type does have blind spots that can limit growth. So the key is to recognize and address those areas that can help you proactively overcome challenges and unlock your full potential. So what kind of issues come out of blind spots? Well, they're often recurring challenges such as burnout, miscommunication, missed opportunities. So by identifying them, you can transform weaknesses into strengths. So I'll give you a couple of examples of some profiles just to kind of bring things towards a conclusion. So the protagonist, which is the ENFJ, they tend to overextend themselves because they're always trying to please everybody. So your advice in that situation would be to obviously set clear boundaries, prioritize high impact tasks and learn to say no to distractions. The INTP, which is the thinker, they tend to overanalyze decisions. I think we all know someone that is an INTP, which leads to delayed action. So a solution there might be to set time limits for analysis and focus on good enough solutions to maintain momentum. Don't get kind of stuck in the mud by thinking it's not 100%. And then a couple of other examples might be the entertainer, the ESFP. Their blind spot tends to be to focus too much on the now, and what they do in the consequences overlook long-term planning. So again, the solution is to probably balance the excitement for short-term results with regular strategic reviews to stay on track. I'd probably just mention as a final example the ISFJ, which is the defender, who are generally quite reluctant to share their ideas or speak up in group settings. So the opposite of Howard, if I can say that, Howard. So how would you encourage those guys? You prepare talking points ahead of meetings and practice voicing thoughts in smaller settings first. So you see, there's always a solution for every difficulty, if I can say that. And one thing to perhaps reflect on, following the webinar, is perhaps think of a recent challenge that you all faced at work or possibly in an interview setting, and whether it could relate to a blind spot in your personality type. Feel free to share something in the chat if you do feel comfortable. No problem if not. But I think the point is, by understanding the MBTI type, it isn't a perfect science, but it can help strategically align career moves, leverage strengths, help you perform at your best, and proactively address blind spots that may hold you back. So it isn't really just about awareness, it's about turning those insights into actionable steps for career success. And a lot of the time I'm talking to people about this, it isn't the wholesale changes that make a difference, it's the subtle tweaks, effectively. So I think the challenge here is knowing that the MBTI type is powerful, but interpreting what it actually means for your career can be overwhelming. And that's where August Jaeger can help. We do offer, as part of our service offering, personalized MBTI interpretation sessions to help you connect the dots between who you are and where you want to go. So in terms of what that looks like, that's a one-on-one session with myself, apologies for that in advance, to help you interpret those MBTI results. And from that, you get a tailored roadmap that highlights your ideal roles, your blind spots, your actionable strategies. It also includes practical guidance to optimize performance and align your career moves with your unique personality. So for attendees of this webinar, it's maybe just worth mentioning I'm offering a discounted one-on-one session for anyone who this would be useful for within 14 days of this webinar. Just quote MBTI offer. I'm hoping the QR code would actually work. If it does, that'll take you to my booking link to book in 20 minutes for a non-obligatory conversation. So just to put that in the mix. But I'm going to wrap this all up by saying, in summary, unlocking insights into yourself is the first step to career success. Our personalized interpretation using the MBTI framework helps you to identify where you shine, how to optimize performance, and overcome challenges. So I'm going to just check if anyone's got any questions. I think Patrick does. Let's bring you in, Patrick.
I really like it, and thank you for the offer, but I have it for free where I work. But it's good to listen to the webinar that you did today, because it's good to know that it's not only in the organization I've been working, or it's not only in the business I've been doing all my career in. It's all over the place, and I really enjoyed Robin, Howard, and everybody's opinion about the topic. So it was great to do this. I'm happy that I have registered on LinkedIn, and thank you kindly.
It's a real pleasure, Pat. Thank you for taking the time. And by the way, apologies to everyone who was just expecting to be here for 45 minutes. I realize that we've waffled a little bit beyond that, but I do hope it's been a useful overview. I want to thank you all for your time and attention. And before I sign off, I'd like to open the floor to any remaining questions people may have about MBTI. If there's any particular career struggles you may be wrestling with, feel free to raise your hand at this point. And if not, we will kind of sign off and wish you all the best. So any final questions?
Happy New Year to everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Happy New Year.
Thanks, Aaron.
Bye.
Great discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Aaron.
Thank you all for joining.
Thanks for your time.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.
You're very welcome. Have a great evening. Thanks. Bye-bye.